So this episode, I want to talk about the power of disruption. So what is disruption? Disruption is when you do something so different that people hate it. That they hate it because they don't understand it. Right? That's the power of disruption. But with disruption, it could be a bad thing, right? Like you can do something so disruptive that it's stupid. You'd be like, why did you even do that? But there's two sides to the coin. You can, when you do something disruptive, make it logical and make sure that it makes sense. Make sure it makes sense. Like even if you look at Picasso or Da Vinci or all these guys who said, they said when they first did something, people didn't like it. Or even like Kanye West, right? But I like Picasso and all those guys because when they died, that's when they started making money. Because nobody understood what they was doing when they did it. Right? So they was disruptive. And even like Ty Lopez, I always bring up Ty Lopez. A lot of people hate him because they didn't understand what he was doing. Because he disrupted, right? He disrupted. Anytime somebody disrupts, there's hate. Because there's envy in disruption. Because they're like, I didn't do that. Why didn't I think of that? It's stupid, right? That's what most older people think. Because they don't have an adaptive brain and they don't have perspective. Like when people don't have perspective behind their thoughts, then they're just going, right? If you don't have a perspective behind what you're thinking, then you're just a sitting duck. You're just talking, right? You don't know what you're thinking and why you think it, right? Like people don't know that red and yellow make you hungry. They just go to McDonald's, right? But a person who knows that and they own a McDonald's, they drive by the McDonald's and they see people eating because they have a perspective behind that thought. They're like, they're hungry because I engineered that. It's the same way with a commercial. Somebody can watch a commercial and they wouldn't know that yellow and red make you hungry. But the person that made the commercial, they know that. So when they're watching it, they understand what it's doing. But a person that's just sitting there, they're just taking it in. They don't know what's being done. Right? Edward Bernays, right? Useless eaters. Right? They're engineering that behind the philosophy that they've created. But a regular person don't have that perspective. They're just consuming, right? That's the power of disruption too. Because if you have that perspective, then you can disrupt and have a perspective behind that disruption. But everyone else is like, I just hate it. I don't like it. And then they come around to like it. Why? Because you had the perspective that was bigger than theirs. Right? I'm trying to think of an example. Like even if you take something like a Michael Jackson Thriller, right? Or even just rap music in general, right? Like people like, you can't rap about guns and violence. And then they do it. And then it's like, it's just disrupted. I hate it. I don't like it. And now everybody likes it, right? They hate what they didn't understand. But now that they understand it, it's neutral. That's just how things work. That's how things work. Look at TikTok. Look at Instagram. Facebook is stupid. Instagram is stupid. It's disruptive. And then they come around. Now they understand it. So 1 billion users, right? That's how it works. You disrupt, there's hate, and then they come around, right? That's why you got to keep going through hate. Because if they hate you, that means you just disrupted. right? Especially if it's not logical hate. If it's not something that's hurting somebody or really just offensive, well, that's broad too, because that don't really mean nothing. That's just feelings. But disruption can make people hate when you disrupt them. Like, look online. If you do something different online, it'll be some hate. Like, oh my God, look at this. Some people laughing, smiley emojis, craziness, right? Emotion. It's emotion. But then they come around, the person undone it, now they had 2 million followers. After, what, a year of hate, they have 2 million followers. Because there was envy in the disruption. The disruption was what the hate stemmed from. But they kept following through because they knew, you're hating me because I'm doing something different. And then they just keep doing it, and then they become successful. But then you got, that's why I made the video, haters versus knowers. Because a knower knows someone who's hating, so they just keep going. But the hater doesn't know, right? So they just hate. That's why hating is stupid, because you're just pretty much showing that you don't know something. But a knower looks at somebody doing something and they're not going to hate. They're like, okay, I know why he's doing that. And they see 150 comments of haters and they're like, oh yeah, I see, that's good. You should keep doing that. But a hater is going to come in and add to the haters, like, look at this, right? Haters versus knowers, right? It's the perspective behind what you see.